We tend to think history only happens on the dates printed in bold text on our calendars, July 4th or December 7th. But if you pick a completely random square, say March 22nd, and drill straight down through the decades, you find a chronological roadmap of human evolution. This graphic lists 5 historical milestones that all landed exactly on March 22nd, spanning from a 19th century parachute jump to the modern global water crisis. Look at the descent of the dates: 1890, 1917, 1954, 1957, right down to the present day. This timeline tracks how our ambitions scaled up over a single century. We went from trying to survive physical ailments to restructuring global borders and eventually to realizing we need to conserve the resources we spent the century consuming. In the late 1800s, human progress was measured largely by individual physical bravery. We were testing the absolute limits of gravity and survival. On March 22, 1890, Ramachandra Chatterjee successfully landed by parachute. It was a singular feat of aerial endurance for a single human being. Within a few decades, the definition of progress scaled up. The focus shifted away from lone pioneers testing the elements toward massive populations shifting national borders. On March 22, 1917, the United States became the first nation to officially recognize the newly formed Provisional Government of Russia. This diplomatic move was a necessary precondition for the alliances of World War I. The U.S. needed a formalized partner in the East to stabilize the global chessboard before committing its own forces. In just 27 years, our major milestones went from a lone man falling from the sky to entire nations aligning for global war. Following the World Wars, global borders temporarily settled. The ambition of the mid-20th century turned inward, prioritizing domestic infrastructure and economic expansion. On March 22, 1954, Northland Center opened in Southfield, Michigan. With its sprawling mid-century design and massive parking lots, it was the first regional shopping mall in America. It centralized the retail experience, pulling commerce out of dense downtowns and building it around the automobile. This set the blueprint for suburban consumer behavior for the next 50 years. While America was constructing temples to retail capitalism, newly independent nations were building a different kind of domestic infrastructure. Exactly 3 years later, on March 22, 1957, India officially adopted a national calendar based on the ancient Shaka era. The Shaka era is a historic Indian timekeeping system that dates back to the year 78 CE. Reinstating a native calendar was a deliberate rejection of the Gregorian system imposed by British rule. It was a legislative assertion of sovereign identity. Both of these 1950s milestones show societies cementing their modern normal. One formalized an era of mass consumption, while the other reclaimed a deeply rooted cultural heritage. Fast forward to today, and the global focus for March 22nd converges on a single issue: World Water Day. This line graph visualizes global water consumption rates throughout the 20th century. You can see the steep curve of human usage sharply intersecting with the flat line of our finite freshwater supply, crossing the threshold of sustainable depletion. The previous century's events on this date were driven by explosive expansion, building malls, recognizing empires, and conquering the physical environment. Now, the observance of March 22nd is a direct reaction to that expansion. We are forced to manage and ration the resources that were severely depleted by the last 100 years of industrial progress. March 22nd acts as a historical mirror. It reflects a clear trajectory, from conquering the skies, to dividing the globe, to paving the suburbs, and finally, to realizing we must protect what is left.